All right, so I have some good news for you. I think you could say this is good news. Interesting stuff here. Senators set to vote on bill to codify Supreme Court same-sex marriage protections. So the Senate has reached a deal on gay marriage. Now, why do they even have to vote on this? Because you might be thinking, well, hold on, Kyle. Then the Supreme Court ruled in 2015 that basically gay marriage is a right because of equal protection under the law. If you're gay and you want to get married, you have a right to do it. And that's true, but with the Roe versus Wade decision being overturned, Clarence Thomas had a line in his decision where he said, we should look at Obergefell next. And Obergefell, of course, is gay marriage. So in other words, he's saying, give us a gay marriage case, I want to turn that over too. I want to overturn that too. He also referenced the case that was like a right to contraception. So he wants to overturn that as well. Interestingly enough, what was left out was interracial marriage, because Clarence Thomas is interracially married. He thinks that is worthy of protection, but not gay marriage and not right to contraception. So anyway, there are fears that, hey, maybe at some point, we don't know when, they could overthrow gay marriage and say, no, this is the wrong interpretation of the Constitution. You have no right to gay marriage. So now that leaves it to the Senate to legislatively do it. The Senate and the House would have to pass it into law and just make it a law. Okay, so at first, they weren't able to get it through. And we covered that. 157 Republicans in the House voted against gay marriage. And there weren't enough Senate Republicans that would vote for gay marriage. So, well, what's this deal they reached? How do they change it in order to get the votes that they need? Well, that's where this article comes into play. So here's what they say in the Hill. The Senate is set to vote this week on a bill to codify the Supreme Court's same-sex marriage protections after a bipartisan group of senators unveiled a deal earlier Monday, signaling they believe they have the votes to get past a filibuster and move the measure to President Biden's desk. So they have over 60 votes. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer filed cloture on the legislation on Monday, teeing up the first vote on the measure for Wednesday. The New York Democrats' move indicates that the updated bill has the support of 10 Senate Republicans needed. The new deal updates language from before the election and includes provisions to assuage GOP members on religious liberty-related issues. Okay, interesting. Because my top priority is to get things done in a bipartisan way whenever we can, we determined that this legislation was too important to risk failure, so we waited to give bipartisanship a chance. Schumer said in a statement, I hope for the sake of tens of millions of Americans that at least 10 Republicans will vote with us to protect marriage equality into law soon. The rights and dignity of millions of Americans depend on it. So, here are the 5 senators, a group of 5 senators, Tammy Baldwin, Susan Collins, Kirsten Sinema, and Rob Portman, and Tom Tillis, released the updated legislation which protects non-profit religious organizations from providing services in support of same-sex marriage. So, in other words, there's some concessions here to try to get it through, to try to get the number of votes that you need to get it through. One of the concessions is, if you're a non-profit religious organization, you don't have to provide gay marriage services. So in other words, it's like certain religious institutions can reject performing a gay marriage if they so want to, but a gay couple would still have a right to get married. They just have to go to a place that would willingly sort of accept them. That's part of the compromise. It would also protect religious liberty and conscience protections under the Constitution and federal law. Senator Mitt Romney told The Hill that provided the Religious Freedom Amendment is part of the final bill, he will support it. That would make 4 Senate Republicans who publicly back the effort. I'd like to get onto the bill, Romney said, calling the amendment a positive step. If that amendment is attached to the bill, I'll vote for it. So, that is like, I guess, the biggest part of the bill that's sort of a concession. And then we also have, interestingly enough, they go on to say this bill would ensure that the federal government does not recognize polygamous marriage. Just randomly taking a shot at polygamy in the bill. They say, quote, through bipartisan collaboration, we've crafted common sense language to confirm that this legislation fully respects and protects Americans' religious liberties and diverse beliefs while leaving intact the core mission of the legislation to protect marriage equality. We look forward to this legislation coming to the floor and are confident that this amendment has helped earn the broad bipartisan support needed to pass our common sense legislation into law. So the Senate could pass this, then it would go back to the House. They'd have to approve the measure because they had previously approved the other gay marriage bill without like the bipartisan language. So 47 House Republicans did vote in favor of the original gay marriage bill. Now with the added right-wing caveats in there, you might get more. Not exactly sure. But anyway, so now, look, if you ask me, of course, I would prefer the original bill, because in the same way that, like, it's not legal for a church to say, we don't want to interracially marry you. You got a black person, a white person, you come to us to get married, we don't believe in that, we don't want to marry you. I think that's wrong. I think that's flat-out discrimination. More importantly, it's arbitrary discrimination. It's like something they can't help, it's their skin color. It's like, what if they said to somebody who has brown eyes and blue eyes, we don't marry your kind because we think you should say to your own kind. So blue eyes should marry blue eyes, brown eyes should marry brown eyes. You're not doing that. We don't believe in that. We're going to kick you out. So I don't like that. In fact, I hate it. I hate the idea that, like, this is kind of a pretty big loophole, because now what? I don't know the percentages, but 30, 40, 50% of the churches around the country now are going to be like, we don't believe in this, so fuck off. And that would mean you can still get gay married, but you have to go to, a government building and just sign the paperwork, or go to some sort of church or whatever that would marry you. So it does allow for discrimination while protecting the institution. So you have a right to it, but others don't have to participate in it. So it is a compromise. Don't get it twisted. It is a compromise. Now, if you tell me, hey man, let's say the Supreme Court overturns gay marriage, and you could either have this bill pass or nothing pass, well, obviously I'm going to take this bill, because at least then you still have a right to gay marry. It just says, if a particular church doesn't want to marry you, it's like, that's their right, basically. I would take this over nothing for sure. So ultimately, to protect it, if the Supreme Court overturns it, it probably is a good idea to vote for this bill, right? But having said that, now let's bring in the right-wing goons. So here is Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro sees that, oh my God, they've reached a bipartisan agreement in the Senate on gay marriage. Now again, I just told you all the facts about it, right? So the original gay marriage idea is like, you have a right to get gay married, people can't discriminate against you on the basis of your sexual orientation, so I think anybody would have to marry you, right? Now that's, well, you don't have to if you don't want to, but they still have a right to do it. They could shop around and find somebody who wants to do it. Okay, it's like he hops in a time machine back to like the 1980s to make these arguments. Watch this.
So, with the Democrats taking the Senate, they're now going to move ahead with a vote on a gay marriage bill. Now, what is the purpose of a gay marriage bill? There is no purpose to a gay marriage bill. Obergefell has already been ruled upon. And
that's a lie, and he knows that's a lie. Clarence Thomas had a line in their decision in Dobbs overturning Roe versus Wade that said we should do Obergefell next. So they might overturn gay marriage next. That is the only reason why we're bringing up legislation to get gay marriage codified into law. Because if it gets overturned at the Supreme Court, you still want to have the protections in place. So he knows that's a lie. He's smart enough to know that's a lie. He's just lying to you. And he thinks his audience is fucking dumb. That's what he's betting on here.
And a simple gay marriage bill is not even a constitutional amendment. So it's not even above and beyond the Supreme Court ruling. The Supreme Court ruling is still the law. If the Supreme Court ruling were overturned, a quick majority in the Senate could quickly overturn this law. Okay, but
so what he's saying is, hey, if you pass this into law, well, Republicans could just reverse it at some point anyway, so why even waste your time? Well, the reason why you would do that is because it would lead to quite a backlash. If we codify gay marriage and then Republicans get power and they're like, we're just going to overturn that. That would lead to a huge backlash against Republicans. So of course you should do it. It's the right thing to do. Again, he's so slimy.
The idea here is that you're going to get all the Republicans on record as to whether they support or do not support same-sex marriage. Now, let me just put this out there for the Republican senators. If you vote in favor of the idea that society has an obligation to recognize male-male or female-female dyads in the same way that society has an obligation to recognize male-female, you should not be in the Republican Party.
So there should be a litmus test in the Republican Party that you need to be anti-gay marriage. Dude, what era are you talking in? What decade is it? It's amazing because everybody thought, like, okay, yeah, after 2015, you move on. Trump was holding up like an LGBTQ flag when he was running in 2016, and it's like, all right, I guess the right has moved on, right? They've gotten past the anti-gay stuff. It is right underneath the surface for a lot of them, and the second they sense an opportunity, they're all in. He's just flat out making an anti-gay marriage argument here. That's what he's doing. I want to kick you out of the Republican Party if you believe in gay rights. That's what he's saying. look, careful what you wish for, son, because this is now a 70% issue in the country. So if you want to make the Republican Party just 30% of the country, be my guest, bro. Be my guest.
You shouldn't. Okay, the reason I say this is not because I wish to shrink the size of the Republican Party. Because if the fundamental basis of human society is male, female, child, and you think that by passing a law you can change that reality, you do not belong in government. Now, let me just put this out there for the Republican senators. If you vote in favor of the idea that society has an obligation to recognize male-male or female-female dyads in the same way that society has an obligation to recognize male-female, you should not be in the Republican Party. You shouldn't. Okay, the reason I say this is not because I wish to shrink the size of the Republican Party. Because if the fundamental basis of human society is male, female, child, and you think that by passing a law...
That is not the fundamental basis of human society. We used to be hunter-gatherer tribes. We were polygamous. So it's not what he's saying is not even true. He thinks these like social conventions that we've created are like, that's just nature. That's just how it is. My mommy and daddy told me this is how it works, so this is how it works. Like, that's not an argument. And you should know that, Mr. Facts Over Feelings.
While you can change that reality, you do not belong in government. This is a very simple proposition. Men and men are not the same as a man and a woman who are capable.
That means they shouldn't be able to get married?
Capable of becoming one flesh and producing a child. This is not difficult stuff. Many Republicans will be tempted to vote for this simply to avoid the conflict, so that people don't yell at them. Oh my gosh, you're not respecting love is love. Now, first of all, the love is love argument was always bullcrap.
I mean, amazing. Amazing. At this late date, he's still against gay marriage. And you know what that stems from? And he tries to dress it up intellectually and give you a whole bunch of bullshit, but it stems from religion. That's what it stems from. Any sort of devout Christian, devout Jew, devout Muslim, you know, they're influenced by that. And they believe in some semblance of social conservatism. And they can't justify it. They can't back it up. They can't give you rational arguments. So they just basically bullshit you. Why is the love is love argument bullshit? If marriage is just a social convention, it's cultural, then we can make it whatever the fuck we want to make it. That's what we can do. And so, if you have two guys who want to marry themselves, who want to marry each other, or two women who want to marry each other, who cares? If it makes them happy or doesn't hurt anybody else, then go right ahead. There is no problem. There is no problem. But he doesn't see it that way. It is kind of amazing, right? I don't know how this guy has such a large audience. I don't. He's just like repackaged standard Republican politics, social conservatism, economic conservatism. He's repackaged it. He talks really fast, and he convinces people he knows what he's talking about through sheer fake confidence. But here he is, in the year of our Lord 2022, making an argument against gay marriage. And remember, this bill was a compromise bill, and he's still against it. I support the idea of gay people are allowed to get married and they should have anti-discrimination protection, so you should have to marry them regardless of your beliefs, right? In the same way, you can't just object to an interracial marriage if you're a church. You shouldn't be able to object to a gay marriage, right? But this compromise is, hey, for people who really have an ideological conviction, if they don't want to marry you and they're a church, they don't have to. But you still have a right to do it if you want. That's the compromise. And he's like, no, you don't have a right to do it. So let me ask Ben, in his ideal scenario, what would he do? Would he not allow the millions of Americans who are already gay married to remain gay married? Would he force them to break up, take away their legal rights? Is that what he would do? How would this work? Or would you just ban it from here on out? Everybody in the past, you can remain married, you're grandfathered in, but the ones in the future, you can't do it? And what kind of a justification can you make other than like, this is the way it's always been, historically, even though it hasn't been this way historically. Man. You got anything? No, you don't. And I love how he's so arrogant talking about this when he's on the side that is 30% of the country. I got one more for you. Here we go. His other little gremlin host, Matt Walsh here, who spends like 90% of his time talking about trans people. Now, he's going to take a stab at this one too.
Obviously, if you do this, it is to begin with, it's not just this, but it is also to begin with a threat to an attack on religious liberty.
So for two gay people to get married, that's a threat and attack on religious liberty. You can believe whatever you want to believe religiously, but you just can't take away their rights. No. By you being free and making your own choice for yourself, that has nothing to do with me, it's somehow an attack on me.
That's where it ultimately leads. Because if you're codifying on a federal level that two men have a right to get married, it's a human right, a civil right, then that would mean by extension that that a church that refuses to marry a gay couple is depriving them of their basic human civil rights.
That's how it should be. But again, this is the compromise bill where churches can sort of reject them if they have that belief. Now, by the way, I think the law will continue to be not that until if the Supreme Court overturns it, then that would be the law of the land that they can reject them if they want to reject them. But I'm not 100% sure on that. Correct me if I'm wrong. Go ahead, comment in the comment section below. The way it works now, are you allowed to, if you're gay married, can you go anywhere and say, I'd like for us to get married and they have to do it? Or what? Or is it like, no, places can still reject you? Because I'm under the impression that in the same way, if you're interracially married, a church can't say, we don't want to marry you. It's like that with gay couples now too, right? Am I wrong about that? I don't know. But he doesn't even know that the language of the bill is a compromise bill. He doesn't even know that.
They may not be putting that language in the bill exactly because they want it to pass, but that's what it means. And that's how it will be used, no matter what the bill says.
No, that's the exact opposite. That's the exact opposite. If the Supreme Court overturns it and this bill is law, places who have a religious conviction and objection don't have to marry them, and they'll have to go somewhere else. By the way, I love how he thinks like that is obviously better. You know? Like, he's not concerned about the rights of the gay couple. He's concerned about the asshole bigot who doesn't want to marry them. I mean, it just says so much. It really does. It says so much.
And I'll tell you this, that, any Republican who would sign on to a bill like this, I don't care if they have this weak, they've created this Trojan horse now where they're pretending that they're protecting religious liberty. Doesn't matter. Any Republican who would sign on to that should be exiled from the party.
Again, making the same argument as Ben Shapiro. Let's be a 30% party forever. Okay. Careful what you wish for, bitch.
It won't happen because this is the direction the whole party is going. But that's what should happen. These are Republicans who are signing on to something that only 10 years ago would have been too radically far left for even the farthest left people in the Democrat Party.
Based. that part is true, and it's based. I like that. It's the Overton window, baby. In some ways, it's shifting further and further left. Unfortunately, with economics, the Overton window is way far right because of the influence of money in politics and corruption. But on some social issues, legalizing weed, gay marriage, yeah, the Overton window has moved left. And, the politicians have sort of followed down that path. I mean, look, it's so interesting, right? Because it's a mask-off moment. It's now they're telling you what they really think on this issue, and it's a very, very unpopular position. And it's like, what's at the core of their politics? We know. It's on economics, it's deregulate everything in sight, cut taxes for the rich, embrace free market capitalism as much as humanly possible. And on social issues, it's extreme social conservatism. It's authoritarianism. They want to get in your life. They want to pick and choose what you can and can't do. They don't think gay people should be allowed to get married. And it's unpopular. But in a sense, it's more honest than most of the stuff we usually see from them. It really is a mask-off moment. The core of their politics involves micromanaging your private life. Gay people shouldn't be allowed to get married because I think it's icky. I don't like it. My religion says it's bad, and so I want to alter the course of your life because of my fifis. Don't like that. Don't like that at all. Kind of interesting how the second they saw an opening, all the old bigotry came rushing out. It's very clear. Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.